Welcome to the 21st Century Man podcast. This is where we take a deep dive into each chapter of the book, The 21st Century Man.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Really offers some valuable perspectives on navigating life today. Lots of insights, practical ideas too.
Absolutely. And today we're jumping into chapter 60. It's called The Bond of Spectator Sports. And, well, it's a really interesting one.
It really is. And we're drawing on the chapter itself, of course, but also insights from Hall of Fame broadcaster Joe Starkey, which adds, a lot of weight.
Definitely. So our mission today is basically to unpack what chapter 60 is all about. We want to get into how spectator sports can create these surprisingly powerful connections between people.
Right, and pull out the key takeaways, look at the examples the chapter uses. They're pretty vivid.
They really are. It's just a fascinating way to look at relationships, community, even like our own emotional lives through the lens of sports.
So let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So right off the bat, the core idea the chapter puts forward is pretty striking. It's saying spectator sports aren't just, watching a game.
No, it's more fundamental, more social.
Exactly. The author suggests it's like an instant way to bond with someone you've never even met before.
Finding common ground almost immediately.
Yeah, in a world where that can sometimes be tricky.
In that example they use, it's so spot on. Living in Texas, right?
Yeah, big football state.
You walk up to a stranger, say, "How about them Cowboys?" What happens?
Well, the chapter says you're pretty much guaranteed an emotional response.
Could be good.
Yeah, if they're a fan, enthusiasm, maybe a high five, instant connection.
Or maybe not so good. Like if they're from Houston.
Right. Then you get maybe an animated, different response. Passionate opposition, even.
But either way, the ice is broken. You've got something to talk about instantly.
You've connected. Even if it's over a rivalry, it just cuts through the awkwardness.
It really does. And then there's that John Wooden quote they bring in.
Oh, yeah, the legendary coach. Sports do not build character. They reveal it.
And the chapter kind of flips that, doesn't it? Applies it to the fans.
It does. The argument is that watching sports reveals the fans' character. You see it in their reactions.
The absolute highs when their team wins.
Yes.
Pure joy, right?
Total elation,
Mm-hmm.
celebration. But then you also see the flip side.
The depths of despair when they lose. Real disappointment.
And the author says this willingness to invest emotionally, to offer your heart and soul to a team, win or lose, that's powerful.
That vulnerability, that shared passion, that's what builds the bond.
And the author's seen this firsthand, right? 4 decades in sports broadcasting.
Yeah, imagine the moments witnessed. Fans just pouring everything into their teams.
And the insight is that sharing that roller coaster, the wins and the losses, that's what makes the bond all but unbreakable.
It's not just the good times, it's sticking through the bad times together.
Which leads to that question, really.
Yeah.
Why is this bond so strong? Why does it happen so fast, even with strangers?
Good question. What does the chapter suggest?
It seems to come down to that shared emotional investment. When you feel something that strongly hope, the tension, the joy, the agony, and others are feeling it too.
At the exact same time.
Right. You've gone through something together emotionally, even if you're miles apart, it creates this camaraderie, this understanding.
Like tapping into some kind of tribal thing, shared allegiance.
Maybe. Shared passion for a common cause, even if that cause is just, your team winning. It connects people fast.
Okay, that makes sense. And the chapter then takes this idea from the personal, the one-on-one connection.
And scales it way up to the national level.
Right, using that incredible example. The U.S. hockey team beating the Soviet Union in the 1980 Olympics. Lake Placid.
The miracle on ice.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful because of the context, which the chapter really emphasizes.
Yeah, you have to remember the time. Deep Cold War. Huge international tension.
The chapter paints that picture of the Soviets dominating Eastern Europe, the feeling of threat. They quote, "We will bury you."
It felt really high stakes.
Yeah.
Existential almost. And hockey in America back then, not what it is now.
No, the chapter says it was pretty much second tier nationally. Baseball, football, basketball. They had much bigger followings, bigger TV ratings.
NHL teams had fans, sure, but it wasn't like the whole country was obsessed with hockey.
Not at all. And then you had the Soviet team.
Seen as unstoppable.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Totally dominant. The chapter notes they were officially amateurs, but come on, they were basically pros training together for a year. A machine.
And hadn't they just crushed the U.S. team right before the Olympics?
Oh, yeah. A week before, Madison Square Garden, exhibition game. The Russians humiliated Team USA 10-1.
Wow, 10-1. So expectations for the U.S. team going into the Olympics? Pretty low.
Incredibly low.
All right.
Like zero expectation of even getting a medal. Forget gold.
And the team itself? Mostly college kids? Minor leaguers?
Exactly. Almost entirely college amateurs and minor leaguers who had failed to reach the National Hockey League. Total underdogs.
Which just makes what happened in that semifinal game even more unbelievable. Against the Soviets, the four-time defending champs.
February 2010, 1980. A date, as the chapter says, etched in consciousness.
And the broadcast situation was weird too, wasn't it?
Yeah, really strange. The game starts at 5 p.m. Eastern, but ABC decides not to show it live.
What? Why?
Low expectations, I guess. They figured primetime stuff was more important. They showed it on delay at 8:30 p.m. after it was already over.
Unbelievable. And that detail about Al Michaels.
Oh, yeah. The chapter mentions he got the broadcasting gig mainly because he was the only one at the network who knew the rules.
That's hilarious. It just adds to the sense that nobody saw this coming.
Nobody. But then the game. Wow. That turning point the chapter highlights.
Mike Erudzione's goal, to make it 4-3 U.S.
With exactly 10 minutes to play. Precise detail there.
And the arena must have exploded.
The chapter says the arena went into a frenzy, packed with Americans chanting USA, USA, waving flags. Those last 10 minutes must have been electric.
You can just picture it, holding on for dear life.
And when they did, celebration. Not just in the arena, but all over Lake Placid, deep into the night.
And as the news got out, before the delayed broadcast even aired.
Exactly. Word spreads. People start hearing about this incredible upset. The audience for that 8.30 delayed showing, it grew dramatically.
So people are watching, knowing the result, but reliving it.
And the chapter says cries of USA, USA rang throughout the entire country. Just a massive shared moment.
And this is where it becomes more than just sports, right? The timing, the Cold War context.
Absolutely. The chapter stresses this. It wasn't just a hockey win. It felt like the U.S. prevailing over our most dangerous enemy at the time.
And this was years before the Berlin Wall fell, before the end of the Cold War, really.
11 years before the Iron Curtain fell, the chapter notes. So in that moment of tension, this win felt huge, symbolic, and affirmation.
And the national impact, just incredible.
The chapter describes people everywhere, all ages, cheering, hugging strangers, just feeling this immense pride in being American.
Yeah.
Pure, simple pride.
Forget politics, just unity.
Total unity. And the buzz just built all weekend because they still had the gold medal game to play. Suddenly, everyone cared about hockey.
All anyone could talk about was these underdog players, the country's morale.
And then they finished the job.
Yeah.
Beat Finland on Sunday for the gold.
The perfect ending.
Creating that shared joy, as the chapter puts it. Making Americans feel proud, feeling like, wow, look what we can do when we work together.
And that final image, Jim Craig, the goalie.
Wrapping the American flag around his shoulders. Iconic. Perfectly capturing the moment.
So the chapter's main point here is crystal clear. This one event.
This miracle on ice.
Yeah.
It created a connection that made total strangers embrace one another. A truly unique, unforgettable American moment. It went way beyond sports.
It really shows how a specific historical context can just amplify the power of a sporting event, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't just hockey fans celebrating. It was the underdog story. The Cold War backdrop. The symbolic weight. It all came together. It let a whole nation feel this collective hope and pride, a shared emotional touchstone when it was really needed.
Amazing stuff. So from that huge national scale, the chapter then shifts back, right, to the more personal level.
Yeah, it brings it back to how sports bonding works on a smaller scale, especially looking at male friendships.
And the author believes, based on experience, that sports are often key here.
That's the idea presented, that a shared interest in sports is often the key to developing and nurturing male friendships. It gives guys a common ground, a reason to connect.
And there's that observation in the chapter, maybe a bit generalizing, but interesting, that men are maybe less likely to have a wide range of close friends compared to women.
Yeah, the chapter suggests women might connect more easily through things like kids, lunch dates, bridge, walks, or just, deep conversation.
Whereas men maybe culturally find those connection points elsewhere. And sports is a big one.
That's the perspective offered. Sports provides that avenue. And one really powerful example of this is the multi-generational team loyalty.
Oh, the Cubs example. That was really touching.
Yeah, 5 generations. Grandfather takes sons, father takes the author shares stories with his son and grandson, even though they don't live in Chicago anymore.
It's more than just watching the games. It's a legacy, right? Shared memories, traditions.
Exactly. It becomes this family bonding thing, a thread connecting generations, all centered around this one baseball team.
And the chapter makes a pretty strong claim here that for a lot of men, even happily married guys, this connection to a team is actually critical for their emotional well-being.
It sounds a bit intense, maybe? Critical. But the chapter explores why.
It links it to daily life, right?
Hmm.
Repetitive jobs, uniforms, whether it's military, work clothes, even a suit.
Yeah, the idea is maybe there's limited self-expression in those roles. You got to conform, hold back emotions, follow the routine.
Creates a need for an outlet somewhere else.
And that's where sports, especially game day, comes in. Men turn to sports.
They ditch the work uniform, put on the team colors.
Jerseys, hats, the whole deal. They join the crowd, become part of that collective.
Stomping, yelling, things you can't do at the office.
Right. As a collective group with one united voice, they can boo the refs, yell at the opponents.
Get it all out.
But also laugh, shout, cheer, just letting off steam in a way they can't do anywhere else. It's like a sanctioned space for emotional release.
So why is that outlet, that collective thing, so important for well-being, according to the chapter?
Well, it taps into that basic human need for belonging, right? Being part of a group with a shared purpose, even if it's just cheering for the Giants or whoever.
And maybe especially for men, if the chapter's observation about fewer outlets for emotional expression holds true.
Exactly. Game day offers this space where the rules are different. You can be loud, passionate, vulnerable even, within that group safety, sharing those intense emotions together. It fights isolation. It's validating.
Provides that vital social emotional outlet. Makes sense.
It's finding your tribe, even if it's just for a few hours on a Sunday.
Okay, so we've seen national bonds, personal bonds. Now the chapter talks about these really rare, kind of bizarre moments in sports, right?
Yeah, moments so unique they capture a whole community, even people who don't normally care about sports.
An example is legendary, the play, Cal versus Stanford football.
Oh, it's a perfect example. The chapter notes this rivalry isn't just for sports nuts. Students, alumni, even faculty who ignore football all year, they tune in for this game.
And the history goes way back, like 1892.
Yep, over a century of competition. The chapter talks about these deeply rooted connections. Faculty, coaches, families, sometimes people with degrees from both schools. It's complicated.
Makes the rivalry really intense, but also kind of unique.
And nothing sums it up like that 1982 game in Berkeley, the play.
Okay, set the scene again. 4 seconds left. Stanford kicks a field goal.
They go ahead 2019, and the chapter points out this was huge for Stanford. A win meant their star QB, John Elway,
Future NFL Hall of Famer.
would finally get to a bowl game in his college career. Only time. So victory seemed sealed. History made for Stanford.
But then the kickoff.
What seemed like a routine kickoff,
Yeah.
Cal gets it back near midfield, and then chaos.
How many laterals was it?
6 deft lateral handoffs between 5 different players, zigzagging down the field as time expired. Pure improvisation.
Just keep the ball alive.
Exactly. But the craziest part,
The band?
the Stanford marching band. They thought the game was over, Stanford won, so they poured onto the field.
To celebrate, right? As the Cal players are trying to score.
The last 2 Cal guys literally had to run through the band to get to the end zone. It's insane.
The chapter says you got to watch the footage online.
Oh, you absolutely have to. You
Yeah.
can't fully grasp the madness otherwise. The band is just there.
In Joe Starkey's call.
Part of the legend. His wildly enthusiastic voice, calling it second by second, disbelief growing. It's iconic.
So the final moment, Kevin Moan scores.
Slams the ball down, crashing right into a Stanford trombone player, Gary Tyrell.
You can't make this stuff up. Final score, Cal 25, Stanford 20.
And the chapter even adds that Gary Tyrell joked about it later, like, takes more than that to keep me down. Good humor about the absurdity.
But Stanford's reaction, they never really accepted it.
Famously, no. The chapter says they've never admitted that they lost. Blame the officials, the laterals, the band.
And they mess with the Axe Trophy score every year they win.
Yep. It's part of the lore, that whole axe to grind thing.
So the play lives on. Mention it to any Cal or Stanford alum.
Instant reaction. Intense but good-natured bantering, the chapter calls it. It's this shared, indelible, absolutely bizarre memory that connects them, even across the rivalry.
How does a moment like that create such a lasting community memory, even across rival lines?
Well, it's just so unique, isn't it? So improbable, so visually chaotic. With the band and Starkey's call, it became more than a game result. It became a story, a legend.
The absurdity makes it stick.
Exactly. And everyone connected to Cal or Stanford shares in that story. It gives them something specific, something unforgettable to connect over, even if they're arguing about the outcome. It reinforces their community identity through this shared piece of history. Strange history, but shared.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've had national bonds, community bonds, personal bonds. The chapter also looks at individual stories, right?
Yeah, how the journey of one athlete can be really connecting and inspiring. Stephen Curry is the main example here.
An unexpected hero. The chapter says basically nobody saw him becoming an NBA superstar.
Right. His background, as laid out in the source, wasn't highly recruited out of high school, played at Davidson, which is respected but not a basketball factory.
Not like Duke or Kentucky.
Exactly. And even the NBA draft, there wasn't a great scramble to get him. He wasn't pegged as the next big thing.
And the Warriors team he joined,
Yeah.
they weren't exactly winners back then.
No, the chapter points out they'd been missing the playoffs consistently for almost 2 decades, known for struggling.
Yet suddenly, somehow, as the chapter puts it,
This skinny kid in the Warriors evolved into greatness. It felt kind of out of nowhere, this transformation.
but it's not just the basketball success, is it? The chapter stresses his off-court stuff, too.
Definitely. His remarkable leadership in a wide range of charities and humanitarian causes, that's highlighted as a key part of his story and his impact. He's presented as more than just an athlete.
So all that together, the underdog story, the success, the character, makes him a symbol.
Yeah, a symbol and a benchmark for how we should all live our lives is how the chapter frames it. He embodies perseverance, humility, using your platform for good.
And that leads to that really powerful message the chapter pulls out, the one a father can tell his son.
Right. You can be great in your own way. It's okay to dream of greatness in sports or business or medicine. Curry did it, so can you.
It connects his specific story to a universal hope, makes greatness feel attainable, maybe.
I think that's exactly it. How does his story resonate so broadly? Because it breaks the mold. It says you don't have to be the chosen one from day one.
It's about dedication, skill, finding your niche.
Persevering when overlooked. And crucially, having character. By linking it to any field business, medicine, whatever the chapter makes it relatable. It's a message of hope, really. Dream big, work hard, be a good person, find your own path. Curry's story makes that feel real.
So bringing all these threads together now, national unity, community memory, friendships, emotional release, individual inspiration.
The chapter pulls it all together nicely at the end. It reiterates that sports really do give us the whole range of human experience.
The highs, the lows, the absurdity, we saw it all in the examples. Miracle on Ice, the play.
But the main takeaway, the core message emphasized, is that despite all that emotional turmoil, sports provide the shared joy of a common bond.
That connection is the key thing.
Yeah, whether it's national pride, community history, hanging out with friends, or finding a role model, it connects us.
And that other point, sports can make us feel better about ourselves, about the world.
The chapter highlights that unique ability. In tough times, sports can offer these moments of pure joy, belonging, uplift, a sense of optimism.
Which leads to that final question the chapter poses.
What man doesn't want that?
Kind of rhetorical, suggesting everyone wants that connection, that belonging, that positive shared experience.
Exactly. And when you look back at the examples, the Miracle, the play, the Cubs fans, Curry, they all showcase different facets of that bond. It's built on shared passion, shared memories, shared emotions, shared identity.
Contributing to connection, belonging, well-being, ultimately.
In ways that maybe only spectator sports can do on that scale.
Wow. This deep dive really shows how much the 21st century man digs into these important parts of life, things we might not always think about critically.
For sure. The insights here on sports bonding are just, one piece of what the book offers.
So we definitely encourage you, the listener, to check out the 21st century man for yourself. Go deeper into these ideas, explore the other chapters. There's a lot there.
Really valuable stuff for understanding modern life, building connections.
Okay, that pretty much wraps up our deep dive into Chapter 60, the Bond of Spectator Sports. We've covered a lot of ground: national unity, community legends, personal ties, individual inspiration.
It really underscores the power of just sharing an experience, even from the sidelines. Cheering together, groaning together, it creates real bonds.
In a world that can feel pretty disconnected sometimes, maybe we shouldn't underestimate the value of yelling at the TV together, right? What other everyday thing creates that kind of connection? Makes you think.
It really does.
Join us next time on the 21st Century Man podcast. We'll be diving into Chapter 61, Practicing Mindfulness.
Looking forward to that one.
Until then, keep exploring, keep connecting.